Hi, everyone, and welcome to Raise the Vibe with Liz. I'm your host, Liz Peterson, and today I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Lisa Morse, who lives here on Vashon Island, where I am, and I've been following her progress as she goes through a training with neuro-linguistic programming and quantum time technique. And I've been able to follow along on her newsletter, and it's so fascinating. I wanted to bring her on and have her chat all about, especially the quantum time technique because that's new to me. And I know this is going to be new to a lot of my listeners. So, first of all, a little bit about Dr. Lisa. Dr. Lisa Morse is a naturopathic physician, hypnotherapy practitioner, and irritable bowel syndrome expert. She has over 10 years' experience helping her patients overcome various health conditions. She specializes in IBS and is passionate about helping her patients find lasting relief from the symptoms of IBS so that they can finally enjoy eating again without fear, feel truly comfortable in their bodies, and reclaim joyful moments with friends and family. Dr. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Liz.
Such a
I'm
pleasure to
excited to be here.
be here. Yeah, I'm excited to have you here too. So, what led you to, going and taking neurolinguistic programming and quantum time technique?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, it had to do with partly with myself, but also obviously with my patients. I've been working for 10 years and, having good results with my patients, helping them get past health conditions, particularly IBS, but feeling like there was something deeper that I needed to address and that I didn't have the tools. And even just with myself feeling stuck in different areas of my life, maybe just like reactions I have to my kids or even to my patients. And so another naturopath told me, hey, I have had amazing transformation with doing NLP and QTT and hypnosis. And so I started to look into it. And as soon as I learned about it, I was like, I just had this intuition like, I need to do this. This is something that I need to do. And so it was a 7-day training with a company called Zesty, and I went to Dallas for 7 days, and it was just intense training where I learned all the techniques and experienced them and have now brought them back to help my patients. And yeah, had that transformation myself.
That's incredible. What was really a standout for
Yeah.
you that you learned about these techniques and how they can help us, with what's going on in our physical, mental, and spiritual bodies?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me was the QTT work and just how our subconscious is such a big player in our lives, and that there are things that, so what it is that our subconscious directs pretty much 95% of our steps in life, which is huge. That's a huge part of how we live. And so that is actually set in before we're 7 years old and can actually be as well like when we're in the womb or from our ancestors. And so addressing the subconscious is so important. And so the exercises that we did with the QTT, it stands for quantum time technique. And what it has to do with is that we all have this timeline of where our memories are, how we store our memories from our past, whether it is, before we're 7 years old or even in the womb or from our ancestors. And so accessing those things is important so that we can move past them. And so we don't actually have to be conscious of it. That's the coolest thing, I think. So as part of the QTT, you work through what we call them the big six. It's the big six negative emotions. And that's not to say that so it's anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, and shame. And so it's not to say that emotions are bad, but sometimes we can get attached to those, have something in our past that spurred that emotion, and then we're just kind of attached to that emotion. And so working through those big six emotions is what we use QTT for. And then we don't actually have to be, so I'm coming back to, we don't actually have to be conscious of what it was that happened in our past when we do the QTT process. So, like, as opposed to talk therapy, where you sit down and you rehash the trauma and what happened, the terrible things. With the QTT, we don't actually have to be conscious. So, just an example, when I was doing fear for myself, the facilitator asked me, to travel back in my timeline to the event that when the event was if the event is disconnected will cause the I call it unwarranted anger. So like I said, emotions, we want to feel emotions, but sometimes emotions can be unwarranted, like road rage, or we're getting angry at something that really we shouldn't be angry about. Of course, if someone hurts us or does something terrible to us, then then we can be angry. But anyway, so I know I'm kind of moving through here, but so when I was doing the QTT for my anger, the facilitator asked me to go back in my timeline and find that event. And what came up for me was so interesting. Like I saw the orange and red carpet of my family room home, like as a child. And then there was something with the TV, the knob on the TV. I'm a child of the 80s or 70s, 80s, so we had the little metal knob and it was all etched. And then my dad was there. I don't remember. Nothing else came up. It wasn't like I consciously remember being angry but it was just connecting to that emotion. And then the process of going through the QTT was bringing forth what my subconscious wanted instead. I know it's kind of nebulous when I'm explaining it right now, but it just, yeah, it's pretty powerful stuff.
Before I dive into the process of QTT, what's the difference between NLP and QTT?
Yeah, so NLP is really about the thoughts that we think, the words that we use, the way we behave, and how it produces like our outcomes in life or our destiny. So there's lots of parts to NLP, but I like to talk about the toothpick analogy, where it's like we have like 11 million bits of information that come at us every second, and our brains can only process 120 bits of information. And so what we do is we actually delete and distort and generalize all that information because our brains can't handle it all. And so when in life, with all this information coming at us, we pick and choose the toothpicks. So I talk about the bits of information like toothpicks. We have all these toothpicks coming at us, and we pick the toothpicks that we want to, I guess, or that's in our subconscious, because that's what we know. So if we're looking for reasons why, we can't lose weight, or we don't belong, or we're not good enough, then those are the things that we will pick up. Or if we look for the reasons that we're amazing and successful, and then those are the toothpicks that we're going to pick up. And so that's just one part of NLP, but it's like when you're going through life, what toothpicks are you picking up? And so that's one of the things that I've, been talking to my patients about, is notice that. And if we can shift those things, then we can change our destiny, because those toothpicks that we pick up, they end up affecting our state, how we feel. And then when we have a certain state, whether it's happy, sad, angry, motivated, then that changes our actions and our behaviors, then which changes our destiny. So yeah,
Wow.
that's just part of NLP. Yeah.
Have you seen like a difference or a reason why one person would pick up, say, the good aspects of life, not to say good or bad, but for lack of better terminology, and the bad aspects of life,
Yeah.
the positive and the negative?
Well, I still think it goes back to the subconscious, like what we were programmed as, unfortunately, before 7 years old. Because I don't know if I mentioned this, but before we're 7 years old, our brains are in a hypnotic state because they're in theta waves. So everything that we're told, and that's kind of goes in. So I call it the file cabinet. So we've got this file cabinet, which is our subconscious, and everything that we're told before we're seven, it goes in there. And then if we try to, so say our subconscious mind's here and our conscious mind is here, and there's a filter here, and now we're adults and we're trying to put information in that file cabinet, it doesn't match up with what's in our subconscious. And so have you ever heard of, like, obviously you have heard of doing affirmations? It's
Yes.
like sometimes that's why affirmations aren't working, because they're not going in there. It's not matching up with what's in the file cabinet. And so, yeah, so I was just thinking of like an example. If you're supposed to meet a friend for lunch and they don't show up, and you're texting them and you don't hear back from them, you and I could have totally the same situation, but totally different reactions. Like I could be like, oh my goodness, what happened to my friend? Is she safe? Another person can be like, I can't believe that she didn't show up. What a flake. Or another person could be like, oh, I'm no fun to hang out with. Like, so we all have these tendencies that can come from our childhood or our ancestors, or so
Yeah, I find it's
yeah.
amazing if, and it can be even as simple as a text and, you're waiting for a reply. And then what shows up when you don't get that reply? And then I look at it as like gifts of like, you know, the like roots that I need to investigate and pull out based on what my thoughts were when I experienced something like that. And it is so
Yes,
fascinating.
it is fascinating, and it's tricky, like it's definitely work to, I mean, and that's why the QTT is so powerful, because it's really getting to that subconscious piece. Whereas if we try to work so hard to make those changes on our own, it it can be challenging. So yeah, so the QTT is really great, and it works on like I said, the big six emotions. So when I'm working with my clients, we're doing anger and sadness, and so that they go together, because one of them's an activating emotion, so it gets us moving, and then the second one of the pair. So there's three sets of pairs. There's anger, sadness, like I said, fear, hurt, and guilt and shame. And so the first emotion of each pair is the activating emotion. So it gets us moving. The second emotion is the deactivating emotion. It's more of like the kind of curl up in a ball emotion. Um, and so we address them in pairs. And I forgot where I was going with this. Um,
I do have a quick
but
question
yeah, it's just,
on the pair,
yeah.
like because I've heard them say
Yeah.
before, under anger is sadness. So is that the same for
Mm-hmm.
the other two as well? You've got this active form.
Yeah. Yes. So pretty much that's why when I'm working with my clients, right now I'll do, one session, we'll do the anger and sadness. And then the next week we meet and then we'll do the next pair. But yeah, we always do them together, because if you do the anger first, then sadness can emerge. And so, yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
interesting. So
Mm-hmm.
diving into our subconscious. So I want to know, like, why can't we do this on our own? Why is it I'm not going to take that back. So we can do this on our own, but it takes a long time. I know when I was going through my trauma, I would have things pop in my head. It's like, no, next, doing everything I can to get off the hamster wheel. And I did end up
Mm-hmm.
doing other things because, yes, I was getting some relief, but I wasn't getting total relief. And I found that doing other things like NLP or plant medicine kind of erase the grooves that I was in and put, just like cleared the slate. So why?
Yes. Yeah, and I mean it's an interesting question because I know that the facilitators that I worked with, they'll try to do it on their own. And they're like, yeah, it's just better. It's just better with someone who's facilitating it with you because what the process is asking questions. The facilitator is asking questions, and the person receiving the therapy is really just, like I said, putting their conscious brain. I say this part, but I'm saying it now, but putting their conscious brain up on the shelf somewhere else and just letting what's in the subconscious come up. And so a lot of times people will, if they're really big thinkers, smart people, they're think a lot, it can be a challenge for them. But in time, practice makes perfect, but no practice helps. But they will have a harder time. And so what I like to say is it's just like whatever comes up, oftentimes they'll be like, oh, I made that up. Where did that come from? That's not true. And it's like, no, that's your subconscious talking. Listen. And so I encourage people, just say whatever comes, say what's ever coming to your mind, even if it's just like, this is annoying, like, I'm frustrated or whatever. Just your subconscious is saying that for a reason. um so yeah, so I don't know about doing it on your own. It's just easier. Like you said, it's not that we can't do it on our own. It's just easier when we have somebody there facilitating and helping and asking the questions, because we're really just trying to elicit what's in the subconscious with the questions.
So a lot of the times when
So
we're
because we'd have to be,
conscious and
go
subconscious,
ahead.
are we doing a thing in life where we're just in denial of our subconscious, basically? Or our conscious mind is totally clueless and like not, because I find when I work with the subconscious, sometimes it's like not aligned. Is that often the case? Almost like our conscious mind is like overriding our subconscious to stay above it. Do you know what I'm trying to ask?
I mean, I would say our conscious mind can override our subconscious. Like that's kind of what the tendency is, if something comes up, it's like, no, like yeah, just like that smart part of our brain or that thinking part wants to be like, no. So I do think that that's true.
And I have also
Mhm.
heard too, like
So
unconsciously we're functioning in the world, but what's really functioning is our subconscious is like making all the decisions if we're not conscious of that.
yes, yes. I do think so. I think with anything in life, I don't know, just like you saying that now just made me think of, and I don't know if you've heard of this before, how the steps of learning, like we have unconscious incompetence, where we don't know what we don't know. And then the next step is like conscious incompetence. It's like now we know that we don't know. And then I have to try to remember these all. And then we have conscious competence where we actually know that we figure it out. And then we actually go to unconscious competence. um so you could use a simple example like driving. um Most of us today, we have unconscious competence with driving. We drive from work to home and we're like, I don't know how I did that. Like I was thinking about XYZ, or so yeah, so I don't know. That just what you said just made me think of that whole thing.
Yeah, that's so interesting. My teacher back in the day, the 4-year program that I went to, she was a psychotherapist who taught Barbara Brennan's work here on the West Coast. And I didn't know it as that conscious, what did you say it was again? Conscious something.
The last one, conscious.
Yeah.
Well, which one? Which stage?
Yeah, she used different wording.
The last.
She goes, there was
Yeah.
the way that I say it too to this day is like first there's like the steps. We don't know we're doing it. then we have the awareness that we're doing it,
Yep.
and we have with the awareness, but we're still doing it. Then we catch ourselves before we do it, and then eventually we get to where we don't even have that thought, or it doesn't even
Yep.
function in our life anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the unconscious competence. I know the words are so like your mind can just kind of go, oh, but you're unconscious that you're competent. You're doing whatever you want to be doing and you don't have to think about it. So
Yeah, I think it's
it's
nice
cool.
though to have that process where we do have, start to have those awarenesses of how we're functioning underneath the surface to, bring them out and then eventually not do that anymore, especially if we're looking to shift or change ourselves in life.
Yeah. Yeah, we're rewiring our brains. I mean, that's what that is doing. And so, I often tell people like, because there can be some confusion or frustration during that time in those 4 steps that I talked about. And I tell people that's just normal. It's just normal. It's good. It means we're rewiring your brain. Your brain likes these same patterns. It's like it's comfortable. And so when we shift things up, it feels different and it's okay. Yeah. So,
Cool.
mhm.
I want to kind of shift because you
Yeah.
shared a lot about your IBS journey, and you help your patients with their IBS journeys. And then also in the newsletters, like as you're going through this, you're talking about that and how you're talking to your body. And you said it's something in your recent newsletter, how physical symptoms are a result of our emotional, mental, and spiritual realm. So let's dive into, that aspect and maybe share some stories also. Um, that you've seen about how these things that have happened in our lives turn into physical things, because I see this in my clients when they come to me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, it's funny because when I was in school, I had some mentors, that told me that, oh, all physical ailments are from spiritual, mental, emotional. And I was like, I mean, I believed it, but I guess I just didn't have the tools. And that's where I was at the beginning of, our talk today. You asked me how I got into this, and it's just like, felt like I really needed something else that was going to shift deeper because I mean the energetic level, and remember the pyramids like physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. The spiritual realm is like that most energetic. And so I think certainly with so many conditions, particularly IBS, I mean, I, I always say to my patients, it's multifactorial, our health is multifactorial, but the it usually is coming from some kind of mental, emotional, spiritual disruption. And I think that I'm just trying to think, yeah, I mean, just my own, I mean, I just know from my own experience that with my IBS, I mean, I've had it for, for 20 years, and it's like just working with, even, I mean, even when I went into this NLP training, I was in a great place, but I feel like the NLP training and everything like that and the QTT really has even catapulted even my health even better. So I think that that's huge. What I would wanted to say, one more thing about the QTT was just that we work on the 6 big emotions, but also limiting beliefs. And those are things that are formed usually as well from something in childhood that we were told. And so I think that, whatever it is, I'm not good enough, or I'm not healthy, or whatever it might be, like those kind of limiting beliefs are a big factor in our physical health. And so, yeah.
And so
Yeah.
how do we tackle those?
Um,
So we've got these, we're living with them, we want to change them. How do we tackle them and shift them so we can live, sort of like more settled or happier lives or content lives?
yeah. Well, so I mean, the QTT is what I do. And so I will talk with my patient and work through what the limiting belief is, so sometimes it'll be something more surface, like um someone will say like, I'm trying to think of an example. I need my supplements to be healthy. Something like very surface, like that's very surface. But there's actually something deeper than that. I'm not, and so teasing that out is the first step. Because a lot of times people aren't even aware. They're not aware of what those subconscious limiting beliefs are. And so the first step is teasing that out and saying, and to me, like something like that might be I think it could be something like, I'm not okay, without something externally like helping me. I'm not okay. So then again, going through the QTT is super helpful, just because what we're doing with the QTT is trying to elicit what it is that the subconscious wants instead. So it's a series of questions. So we'll go back to like I said, an inciting event that maybe has instilled that limiting belief, and then asking, what do you want? What do you want instead? And what's coming up? What does your brain say? And a lot of times, I mean, the same things come up for people, peace, freedom, acceptance, all these things, because these are all things that we all want in life. And then, yeah, and then just being aware of that. And then after, we finish the QTT process, I'm always giving my patients, I call them tasks, but it's just very small things that I'm asking them to come up with that are going to tell their brain, this is the new me. This is the, transformed me, the one that doesn't have that limiting belief anymore. And it can be something super simple. But again, we're rewiring your brain. So like I can have this session with you, but then if you're going to just leave here and not do anything to tell your brain like, hey, this is the new me, I'm changed. Yeah. So it's super important that my clients do their tasks. And when they come back, I ask them, have you done your tasks? So yeah, it's fun. It's fun. And I just want to say also too, the hypnosis is another, I don't know if you do that or if you've had an experience with that, but it was kind of a smaller part of my training, but it is, and I don't do it until the end if I do it, because what the NLP and the QTT are, we're working through all the neural networks that are already there and kind of breaking them down and trying to make new paths. And then we're doing the hypnosis. If you try to do hypnosis on its own without all this other work, it can work. It just, you have to do a lot of sessions because you're trying to lay down new neural networks on top of wiring there that, needs to be adjusted. So,
Yeah, let's unwrap
yeah.
that a little bit because I think that's significant, because we have this internal wiring. Like, let's dive a little bit into the science of, that 7-year program, and then everything the brain wants to be like, sees everything based on those 7 years, experiences everything based on those 7 years, and, how that process of, those neural pathways and then like repatterning those neural pathways.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that, yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, I'm a parent now, so I'm like, of 3 and a 4-year-old. So I'm like, oh my, what am I doing to my kids? I think it's inevitable, that as children we're going to get some neural pathways that aren't maybe so great. But I think that, yeah, and so doing these processes, is super important. And just examining, I think working with somebody, who can guide you through it, and examining the way that we're speaking, and the way that we're, interpreting things that come into our lives and events that happen in our lives. And yeah, it's just really, yeah, um,
Yeah,
important
because we're
stuff.
like, and you say it too. I've said it before. The thoughts we use and the way we act are because of,
Hmm.
this network inside of ourselves that we create.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I think that one of the things, like just as a naturopath, um, trying to help people get over physical symptoms, I think is that when we have these patterns or unresolved negative emotions, as I was talking about with the QTT, the big six, they use up our energy that we need, you know, for healing. And so that's why it's so important to like move through these emotions and just release them. And then, as we release the negative emotions, it allows our body's natural healing mechanisms to happen. And that, and then when we can cultivate positive emotions, that we can stimulate healing and increase our energy. And yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff. Yeah. And I was just also going to say as well, sometimes I've had people be concerned, when I say, oh, we're going to be tapping into your subconscious mind. And they're like, I don't know if I can deal with that. You know, the whole thing with the quantum time technique is, and our unconscious mind is that, well, so it does repress our memories with unresolved negative emotions, and then it will bring up those repressed memories for resolution, but that it will only do this if we're ready to deal with it. And so I just assure people that, your unconscious mind will not bring memories to the surface that you aren't able to deal with.
And that can happen to us as we're aging too. Like in our 40s or 50s, and sometimes even our 60s, like we have these repressed memories come up all of the sudden out of nowhere. And it's true, like they were repressed for a reason and only came up, I believe, like because we were ready to face them. Like we were strong enough
Yes.
to be able to stand with them or sit with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's totally true. Yeah.
So
Um, Go ahead.
walk
Mhm.
us through a session, or you were getting ready to share something. So why don't you go ahead and share what you were just getting
No, no,
ready there and then walk us through a
no,
session.
no, 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 that wasn't, there was nothing. I was just thinking of where to go next. And
Okay.
so, through a session. Yeah, yeah, sure. Let me see here. So let me just bring up my document here, because it is actually a script, that we do. And I do it in two different ways. So sometimes, at the beginning of the script, I'll have the person associate into the event. And sometimes I'll have them be dissociated. Are you familiar with that? Are you familiar with that? Like associated means like have themselves actually in the event, versus dissociated to have them like looking down at the event. And so, yeah, so through, let's see here. So what I would do first is I would have people just kind of get comfortable, get grounded, and breathe, take a couple deep breaths. And then what I would do is I would talk to them about, I think I mentioned at the beginning, the timeline is how we store our memories. And I asked them, where do you store your, or where do you see your past? Do you see it, in relation to your body? And I asked them to kind of close their eyes. And some people say, for me, I say it's behind me. And then I'd say, where's the future? And I'd say in front of me. Sometimes people say it's on the left, past is on the left, past is on the right, or above and below. Like everyone has stores their past and their future, in a different way. But then I asked them to tell them, we're going to I'm going to ask you to connect with an event that happened, and I'm going to ask you if it happened before, during, or after your birth. And just know that you don't have to be consciously aware of the event, and just say whatever pops into your head. And then basically, I'd say, when we're doing the emotion part, I'd say, can you remember a time in a recently? So this is a recent one, not, way back, where you felt angry or whatever it is. So, and then ask them to get in touch with how it feels in their body. Is there a color? Is there a shape? And then I'd say, I want you to thank your unconscious mind for bringing you here and knowing exactly what you need in this moment, knowing exactly how to get the message to you and the wisdom on how to release this emotion, this negative emotion, easily and effortlessly. And then I'd ask them, is it okay with your unconscious mind to release this emotion and be aware of it consciously? And then I would go through and I'd ask the questions about, if you were to know, was it before, during, or after your birth, whatever that event was. And again, they don't have to know what the actual event was, they just need to answer the questions, before. And then if they say before, I'd say, is in the womb, or was it in a past life, or passed down to you genealogically? And then if they said after, I'd ask them what age, and then a number is going to pop in their head. And again, they don't have to know what, say they 4 came up. They don't have to exactly know what happened at 4, but just that it was at 4. And then I'm asking them to float above their timeline. So imagine themselves above that timeline that we imagine of the past, and float above the past. So either they can go into the event or above the event. And then I'm going to say, if you were to know what you were meant to learn from this event, can you tell me the learnings? And so then they'll just, whatever comes. And like I said, sometimes, it'll be like something to do with their family, their mom or their dad or something, and say like, she didn't know any better, or, whatever it is, something. Everyone is so different, like what has come up with them, but comes up for them. But a lot of times there's just a lot of healing about, around parental stuff. um, and then as they tell me the learnings that is coming from their subconscious, then I'm asking them questions. So they're saying, so I would say, knowing that your mom didn't know any better, what does that give you? And then things will be elicited from their subconscious, that I can be calm, or that I can be accepted, or that I'm loved, that I am whatever. Okay, so knowing that you are loved, what does that allow you to do, or what does that allow you to be? So I'm basically just continuing to ask questions and eliciting their subconscious, and just keep going with the learnings, getting the learnings, what they're meant to learn from that event. And then after we do that for a while, eventually they'll just keep circling back to the same things, like peace, freedom, whatever it is they know that their subconscious wants. Then I will ask them, okay, now I want you to check in on that emotion that you had at the beginning of this. So there's two different emotions. There's the emotion that was there in that event way in the past, but then I had also asked them to just connect with an emotion that was recent. And so it's interesting. I had an emotion where I was angry at my husband. This is like a couple nights before the training. I got angry with him. And then when I did this process, my facilitator was like, no, where's that emotion? I was like, no, I was angry about that. It was like completely just like took it away. Um, yeah, it was just, and we just laughed, because it was just, so it's really some pretty cool stuff. So anyways, at the end, I'll check in. Where's that emotion? If emotion is still there, there's still learnings to be had. Let's go back and um, check on that. And so, yeah. And then
I like the
that's usually the
phrasing
end
on that too.
of
There's
this.
still learning that needs to happen. And then where does the
Mhm.
hypnosis come in? So you've done this, you've worked through. So in that particular situation, like where would the hypnosis play in?
Yeah, so the hypnosis would be a different session. So we would work through the big 6 emotions and any limiting beliefs. And then the hypnosis is is really about goals and like what you wanting to manifest. So we come up with what it is that you want to manifest or bring into your life. And then we would do a hypnosis session, and I record it and I give it to my patients, and yeah. So
Nice.
yeah.
Do you have any like situations or stories that you would be able to share as examples for our audience? Maybe.
I'm trying to think. I don't know. Just like of the, I mean, for me, I think just, I mean, I've just started doing this work with patients, so I'm like in the middle of, I do like right now I'm doing 8 session packages because we're doing like the big six, or it takes 3 sessions,
Mhm.
and then we'll do other things like the perceptual positions, which I think you didn't mention the name before, but you were talking about like speaking to your body part. I think you said that, didn't you?
Go
I
into
don't
that a little bit
know.
because
um,
that was something that I do have here in my notes is the perceptual position. So talk a little bit
yeah.
about that because that kind of sparked my interest too.
Yeah, so that is where if you have like if you're at odds with something and you're it could be actually even a person, maybe a relationship or a person you don't talk to even anymore, or someone that you do talk to, or a body part. It's like 3 different positions that you put yourself in. And you use this one you can do more on your own than you can, the QTT, but just asking your that body part what's going, like say someone's back is acting up, you know what's going on with that. Can you What are the messages, what are the learnings, again, what are the learnings that I am meant to have from this pain in my back? And so you're asking that question, and then you're actually putting yourself like as you are, like your back, like when and eliciting like what's coming up. Again, it's from your subconscious, what's coming up as the back speaking. So like it could be, it could be any kind of things. I'm trying to think of an example, but you put yourself in the 3 different positions. So as the back, and then like as the person speaking to your back. So for me, like when I went to the training, I did it with my belly because that, like I said, has been a chronic thing in my life for many years. And I spoke as my belly told me to, you're holding too much. You need to let go. You need to just release. When I spoke to my belly, though, I was like, I'm mad, like I'm pissed, like you've been holding me back. And so it's like perceptual positions, just being in each position and seeing it from a different position. So like I was angry at my belly, and my belly was just like, well, you know what? You need to let go. You need to release. And then actually putting yourself in a third person position where you're like neither yourself or your belly. You're like an innocent bystander who's unbiased. And what are the messages that, are meant for this situation? So you can do it with a person too, which is pretty cool. The person I was working with at the training did that with one of her employees. And so it's really just seeing things from a different perspective, because so much of the time we can just get so caught up in like what we think is going on. And if you can put yourself into a different, like if I yeah, put yourself into a different position and look at it from a different perspective and see what comes up from the subconscious, it can be pretty powerful. So
Yeah, it's
yeah.
really powerful. I actually love that work and love doing that work with myself and my clients when they come in, like walking them through. But I've got you here. You're fresh out of the training. Like, what is it, in our mind that actually like holds that perpetuates that we're able to shift that perception, and then what happens after that shift in perception?
Sorry, ask your question again.
Oh boy. Usually that's not, it's like stream of consciousness with me when I'm interviewing sometimes. Okay, so the process of walking ourselves through that shift in perspective, I guess, is a, way to kind of simplify
Yeah,
the question.
yeah, yeah. So you're asking, um, so we're shifting our perspective, and you're asking how is it that that works?
Yeah.
It's
Did
a
they
good
talk about
question.
that at all?
Um, Not really. I think again, we're eliciting, the subconscious, and I think that you still have to, you're kind of rewiring your brain. Like you're having this release of your subconscious, information from your subconscious. And I think that you could just leave and just be like, whatever. But I still think you have to, it's not a magic, shoo, poof. You still have to decide that you're going to live a different way, and you like I have to decide that I'm going to let go of all that I hold and release it. And I'm going to keep continuing to rewire my brain. Um, yeah. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And that was going to be one of my follow-up questions was that integration process. Because I know like people go to workshops and they come out of it and they're feeling great and everything. And then like a couple of weeks or a couple of months later, they're just reverting back, to themselves. So what is that integration process that we need to do in order to hold the work?
Yeah, I think that for me, I mean, I'm continuing to have people, that I work with, my classmates and things that I work with, but I think I still do stuff on my own. I'm still doing, I can do perceptual positions, and I, am paying attention to how I speak and the words that I'm using and my thoughts. I mean, it's not easy. But it's a lifelong process of just keeping working on ourselves. And so I think, yeah, it's just you just have to be constantly like just aware of how you're thinking and how you're speaking. And it's nice. I mean, my partner, he's already like become an NLP expert and like thinking about taking the course too, just seeing like the change in me. And so he'll, I'll say something and he'll be like, like he'll ask me like he'll rephrase it, I'm like, okay, I know. So yeah, I mean it is a lifelong thing of just working on ourselves and um, keeping up with that. So,
Do you find that there's an intuitive quality to the work? Does intuition play a role?
um, let's see. I mean, yeah, there's got to be there for sure. There is. I feel like in my life, I have struggled with intuition. I feel like in maybe the last 5, 10 years, I've enhanced it some more. So, but I do think that yeah, intuition is really big. And also just when you're working with a person, like um being connected to them and having rapport with them and paying attention to I mean, the whole part of NLP is like sensory acuity, paying attention to their facial, expressions and their body language and things like that is important. So yeah.
Cool. I want to step a little bit further outside of the medical zone. And do you see, like, since you're working with thoughts and patterns and speech and our words, are you seeing, like, within yourself or around you that, that saying thoughts become things? Are you seeing that manifest?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that our thoughts manifest everything that we do. It's so important. Yeah. So you said stepping out of the medical. Yeah, I think I'm like, have we been talking about medical stuff? I think we've all,
Well, you being a doctor, Dr.
uh,
Lisa, right? And you're working with patients
yeah,
and you're
I know.
using QTT. So then, the question sort of grazes over into my metaphysical realm over here
Mm,
and metaphysical topics of like our life, it becomes what we think, like what we think manifests. And I've seen like over the last 6 or 7 years where I will find myself saying something, just random in a
mm,
conversation, no big deal. And then all of a sudden I turn around and there it is in my life. And I'm like,
mm.
oh, I just said this yesterday or the day before. And it's becoming quicker for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's amazing. That's totally I totally believe that that's how it works. Yeah, cool stuff.
Is there anything that we've left out about NLP or QTT that you would like to share with our listeners?
I don't think so. I think, we covered a lot and it's just I think it's so important, such important work, and so powerful in shifting our physical health. And I'm just excited to be doing it and bringing it to my patients. Yeah.
Nice. If people are curious about you and your work, how can they find you and work with you?
They can find me via my website. It's just drlisamorseND.com. And that's my email is drlisa at drlisamorseND.com. Yeah.
Great. And I always ask one final question to my guests. What is a jewel of wisdom that you
Mhm.
would like to leave our listeners with today?
A jewel of wisdom. Um, I think that, yeah, work on your subconscious and your physical health and mental emotional health will soar.
Nice. I love that. Thank you for leaving us with that. Dr.
Mhm.
Lisa, it's been such a
Yeah,
pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on the show and, you know, being available to, talk about NLP and QTT because I think a lot of people, this is the first time I heard about it. So maybe this is the first time
yeah,
they're hearing about it. And I think that this could benefit a lot of people and I'm excited for people to hear it. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate you.
of course. Thank you, Liz. Have a good day.
You too. And thanks everybody for joining us. Again, I'm Liz Peterson, and this is Raise the Vibe with Liz. And remember to get out there and raise the vibe, everybody. Thanks for joining us.